Classroom TV.
Okay, next, the threats to biodiversity. First is habitat destruction. About 31% of the Earth's land is covered by forests. Deforestation can directly lead to biodiversity loss when animal species that live in the trees no longer have their habitat, cannot relocate, and therefore become extinct. Deforestation can lead certain tree species to permanently disappear, which affects biodiversity of plant species in an environment. Next is pollution. We have different types of pollution: the air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, thermal pollution, light pollution, aesthetic pollution, and noise pollution. Some of them directly affect biodiversity, such as land pollution, water pollution in relation to solid waste, air pollution, and noise pollution. Liquid waste can leak into open water, causing eutrophication and the death of wild species of organism. Solid waste kills marine species through suffocating and choking. The third one is the introduction of invasive alien species, IAS, have devastating impacts on native biota, causing decline or even extinction of native species and negatively affecting ecosystem. Invasive alien species are animals, plants, fungi, and microorganisms entered and established in the environment from outside of their natural habitat. They reproduce rapidly, outcompete native species for food, water, and space, and are one of the main causes of global biodiversity loss. Next, let's proceed to the fourth threats in our biodiversity, the climate change. Healthy ecosystem and rich biodiversity are fundamental to life on our planet. Climate change is the shift of abnormal change in climate patterns. As the planet warms quickly, mostly due to human activity, climate patterns in regions around the world will fluctuate. Ecosystem and biodiversity will be forced to fluctuate along with the regional climate, and that could harm many species. The fifth one is the exploitation. Overexploitation is the removal of terrestrial or marine living resources to levels that are too low for sustaining viable population. Ultimately, overexploitation can lead to resource depletion and put a number of threatened and endangered species at risk of extinction. Mostly, this would happen due to overpopulation. Then, overpopulation. The root causes of biodiversity loss are population growth and increasing natural resource consumption. The world's population has more than tripled in the 20th century, and projection shows that continued growth is expected over the next 50 years. According to Palau's report on biodiversity and environment, population growth and increasing resource consumption affects biodiversity in two ways. They create pressure to convert wildlife habitat into agricultural and urban land, and second, they produce waste that pollute habitat and poison wildlife. So how can we prevent loss of biodiversity? Biodiversity loss can be prevented through appropriate research, government legislation, education and awareness, and sustainable use of biodiversity. First, appropriate research. Researches focusing on biodiversity of various organisms are still few. Many species have yet to be discovered. Their needs and characteristics, especially their perpetuation, deserve attention. Second, education and awareness activities. Education and awareness activities have started and are being done continuously. This, however, should be emphasized to everyone while they are still young or in their preschool age. Many times, only the adults are focused on these activities. In addition, sustainable use of biodiversity should be given emphasis. Third, sustainable use of biodiversity. Sustainable use of biodiversity is not just cut a tree and plant a tree. This condition or concept is not sustainable. If you want sustainability, if you cut down a tree, plant at least 50 and monitor them until they are stable, because we can cut a tree in just 5 minutes. But it takes 10 to 20 years for a tree to reach maturity. In this ratio, we can assure that our future generations will have a clean air to breathe and a fresh fruit to eat. Last is the government legislation. Here in the Philippines, we are fortunate that we have lots of laws and policies that protect our environment and, of course, our biodiversity. But we don't need that piece of paper. What we need is the action that follows our laws and policies. We need a strong implementation of our laws enabled to fully protect our environment. So there are several laws and policies here in the Philippines. So these are some of the environmental laws in our country that never forget preserving the wellness and the betterment of our nature. These laws are made by various people and many of them implemented, but others are not that implemented. So first is we have Executive Order number 247 prescribing guidelines and establishing a regulatory framework for the prospecting of biological and genetic resources, their byproducts, and derivatives for scientific and commercial purposes and other purposes. Republic Act 2590, an act for the protection of game and fish. RA 7308, an act to promote and develop the seed industry in the Philippines and create a national seed industry council for other purposes. Then we have RA 7586, the National Integrated Protected Areas System Act of 1992 or the NIPAS Act. The RA 7611, Strategic Environmental Plan for Palawan Act. The RA 7900, the High Value Crops Development Act of 1995. The RA 7942, the Philippine Mining Act. Then we also have RA 9170 or 9147, the Wildlife Protection Act. The RA 8485, the Promote Animal Welfare Act in the Philippines. The Presidential Decree 1433, the Plant Quarantine Decree of 1978, the Presidential Decree 1586, the Environmental Impact Statement System Law, the Executive Order 192, the Reorganization of DENR, the Proclamation Number 926, establishing Subic Watershed Forest Reserve, and lastly, the DAO 02 or the Department Administrative Order 02 establishing protection for ancestral homelands. So these are the laws and policies in our country. Then let's proceed to technique in conserving biodiversity. First is the cell and tissue culture. Cell and tissue culture allow the propagation, multiplication of organisms at a rapid pace. Definitely, this is one way of conserving our resources and rescue the endangered species. Then second, the process of storing or preserving the biological samples in an extremely cold or sub-zero temperature in a deep free state such as negative 196 degrees Celsius. This technology enables the conservation of germ plasma. In our country, this is currently used by the Philippine Carabao Center. And this is the cryopreservation technique. Then the last in conserving our biodiversity is the advances in molecular biology and genetics. Advances in molecular biology and genetics have taken a stronghold in analyzing individual strain of an organism, identify species, and predict future phenotypes. This is a very important technique in maintaining biodiversity. So before I end my presentation this day or my discussion this day, I would like to inform you that biodiversity is very important to us. We don't live and survive without them. Trees are the only sources of oxygen we breathe, and plants and animals are the only source of foods we eat. The environment gives us all we need. So in return, please protect and save them. We only live once in this planet, so please be a steward of this earth. Earth is the only habitable planet we have. So please protect it. Thank you very much, and God blesses us all. Thank you.